All right. Hi, everybody. I think we are live now. And I'm really excited for this one because this book was crazy. And we have, I think, a lot to talk about with this one. I remember, Summer, you said this one would break our brains, and it definitely broke my brain a little bit.
Well, the third one broke my brain worse.
Yeah.
Oh, great.
Woo. Very exciting. Hello, everybody. Let's see who is here. David, I'm really excited. David is joining us for this one. This is really exciting. David, check him out. He is a newer booktuber. Definitely go subscribe to him. He's really cool. And he just kind of jumped into this read along with us. And it has been awesome to have him in the Discord and everything. So definitely go subscribe to David.
Kristen's here.
Hey, oh, awesome. Kristen. Hey, Carrie. And, oh, Kaylee's here too. Awesome. And there's Kristen. Hey, Kristen. I saw Danny. Oh, there's Danny. Yay.
Yes,
Hi, Danny.
Danny here too.
Sweet.
Yes.
All right. Well, I thought we would kick off with another one of our kind of icebreaker questions, and then we can have all of our co-hosts introduce themselves as well. And if you're in the chat, definitely answer this question as well, because I would love to know. But we would like to know, first of all, if everybody could go around and introduce themselves, and then also I would love to know what planet you would pick to live on now, knowing kind of the difference between the two. Would you like to reside as a resident on Malacandra or Perelandra? So personally, my answer for this one would definitely be Malacandra, because I just enjoyed, I think, the creatures and the more like sentient beings and like the different like societies that were on Malacandra. And we kind of missed that in Perelandra, because we really only have, like, the only sentient people are the humans, basically. And all the beasts like can't talk and stuff on Perelandra. So I think I would still live on Malacandra personally. But let's go. We can start with, this way, Christy.
Hello, I'm Christy Lewis. My channel is Christy Lewis Dostoevsky in Space, and I just love Victoria, so that's why I'm here. And of course, C.S. Lewis. I just always find his works so theological and mind-blowing. So that's the kind of stuff that I do like to read on my channel as well, if you want to check it out. But most importantly, why we are here, the questions. I think I would probably choose, I think I would choose Perelandra, partly because it looks like it's harder to die there. Like, you have to like really work hard. Like, everything's soft. There's this delicious fruit everywhere, and it's so new. I feel like the population is just beginning. It's like the beginning of Narnia. It's even like pre-beginning of Narnia. So I think I would really like to see kind of the beginning of a world. And yeah, I feel like there's a difference, and I don't really understand exactly what the difference is though between Malacandra and Perelandra, besides age of the planet. Because obviously Malacandra is an old world and Perelandra is a new world. But like, Perelandra seems more Edenic, kind of, and I don't really know why. Like, they feel like they have different dispensations. So I'll be curious to hear your guys' thoughts as well on this question.
Yeah, that is really interesting. It looks like a lot of people in the chat right now are saying Malacandra. I think because, to your point, Christy, like, it's a bit more of an established world.
Yeah,
it feels a little bit more stable. and the poetry and music, yeah, definitely, Kaylee. Summer?
Hi, I'm Summer from Summer's Moving Bookshelf, and that is a question that I did not really think about. And so now I am kind of having a hard time, because, like, does the introvert in me win and like, hey, no people on Perelandra? Or do I go with the established society? I think I would probably lean towards Malacandra. just because I do know at the end of the day I'm usually a people person. So
it's more people to talk to on Malacandra.
You could still escape and get your alone time.
Yeah.
How about you, Amanda?
Well, I'm Amanda. I have a channel that I'm not uploading to this year, but it's called Her Pacific Northwest Washington Life. And I do have an Instagram that I am slightly more active on. Still catching up from all of my April postings, but I'll get there eventually. Originally, I was leaning towards Perelandra for one reason, dragons.
Dragons, we got our dragons.
Yeah,
Yes.
and they're like dogs, and I love them.
I know, they're like the
They're
best
so
dragons
cute.
possible.
Yeah. But I don't think I could live on a land that, I mean, you can't live, they are told not to live on the solid land. And I think I would just get really seasick living on those floating islands that are going like way up in the air and way down. And so I think I'll go with Malacandra as well because the scenery
I'm
is
alone?
Yeah, you're alone. I'm sorry.
I'm going to be alone on Perelandra with the lady.
Yep. But I do want to take a dragon to Malacandra, if that's okay.
Yes, the dragon was definitely a highlight.
Yeah, I was sad there wasn't more of them.
I know.
I have
really
to try
sound
that
like-
fruit.
Yeah.
Like I have to I'm a foodie, okay? That food sounds way better than the food on Malacandra, which
Okay,
sounds
that's a good point.
kind of dull.
Yeah.
That's
And
a
also
good-
like everything sings on Malacandra. It's like it's not just one culture. Things sing, beasts sing. It's all in so harmonious. So I think it sounds wonderful.
Perelandra was pretty cool. I think definitely we got a lot more details about the world building on Perelandra, and we got a lot more like vivid imagery. So Perelandra is pretty cool too.
Yeah.
Hey,
Penny's here.
Yay, Penny. Awesome. Well, it's really fun hearing your answers and the reasons behind them. So speaking of the planets, since I think this is kind of a good segue, did you have any favorite like world building details about Perelandra? Because I thought that was much more fleshed out. We get a lot of details about the landscape and how the world works and the oceans and everything. Amanda, do you want to start?
Sure. Yeah, I actually tabbed a lot of things about like the descriptions and whatnot, and it just felt so vivid. Which is why I couldn't live there, is because I was, starting to feel a little seasick while reading it. But yeah, just the landscape, you could picture it so well, and like Ransom swimming from one island to the next and just getting caught, and you feel like you yourself are getting caught in the weird tentacle things, and just like how uneven the land is and how it's like he's learning to walk again, and the descriptions of just the animals and the food in there, it sounds so nice.
Definitely. Yeah, it was definitely like sensory overload for Perelandra a little bit.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I can see where you're coming from, Kristen, being overwhelmed. And then this was one of my favorites too, Kaylee, the riding the fish. It's pretty fun. I was like, I want to ride a fish.
There's transportation on this world too.
There's so much transportation.
Yes. How about you, Summer?
Well, I think I'm kind of the opposite of Amanda. I love being on the water. I don't really get seasick. So, I mean, like, I would love that aspect of being on Perelandra. But
You wouldn't mind walking on like unsteady ground?
I mean, I think I would probably just go with it.
Go with the flow.
Like being on a boat, like, kind of has the same feel, and like I didn't really ever have a problem with it. So
yeah. Nice. Hi, Rainy. Welcome.
Hey.
Christy, what about you?
Well, there was so like Amanda, I tabbed up a lot of that kind of description stuff. So one of my favorite parts was when Ransom comes out of the cave. It's like a translucent blue ice-looking cave, and he looks down eventually after kind of waking up, and he sees young mountains, like needles in the air, and he could tell that it's a young world, and that's just like so cool. I love that it's like a young world, and like the view with all the mist, and like everybody was talking about how it's almost like disorienting how much color and stuff, but everything seemed so beautiful. Everything was like a really pretty color, and it just feels like you would be living in a world that it you know, in photography you often add contrast and like brightness and stuff. And I feel like that world is already all of that. You don't have to edit it. It would just be perfect.
No filter.
Yes, no filter. It's like you're living in a constant sunset, but like I don't think he had trouble seeing or anything. It was just really pretty. So yeah. So cool.
Yeah, definitely. I agree. Kristen says, I love the bubble trees. Yeah, I love the bubble trees too.
Yes.
Yeah.
The shower trees.
Yeah. Definitely. Awesome. Well, Christy suggested there's some really cool fan art. So I'm actually just gonna like screen share real quick and we can like just kind of click through a few. But there's some really beautiful fan art. You were right, Christy. So let me see if I can figure out how to do this. So share screen. Okay, I think I did it. Do you guys see that?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. Yeah, so there's some really neat fan art, which is just kind of fun to look through. There's a lot of imagination
Oh wow.
that went into some of these. Oh, there's like little seahorses. Of course, there's a lot of naked people in there too.
Right.
Naked.
Yeah.
But yeah, this definitely gives me like a visual. There's our dragon.
The dragon.
Does the dragon have a name?
No,
I don't
but we
think
can
I
name
don't
them.
think so.
We need to give him a name.
Right? Yes.
Yeah. So anyways, it's kind of neat to just look through. There's definitely a lot of fun inspiration. Okay, stop screen.
Inception.
The bubble trees.
The bubble trees. Yes. Yeah, definitely more vibrant and colorful. Like a lot of vibrant reds and purples, and I thought the cover art of this book is really neat
Yeah.
as well. I think they did a really good job with that.
Mhm.
All right. Well, let's see. Oh, you know what? I kind of skipped this, but do we want to try to summarize the book? Like if you were going to explain it to someone in like a sentence or two, this is like really hard. But how would you guys summarize this book? Like, what do you take away from the story and the plot?
I think the Ransom is brought to Perelandra from a fallen world to prevent that new world from becoming fallen, because he understands it. Yeah, exactly. He wants to break the cycle.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yep. Good summary.
Because the enemy is literally from his world. So I guess that's one thing that qualifies him for the job. Victoria and I were talking about that. Why is he qualified for this? I guess that's why. It's because he's the only one who understands the darkness that comes from the Silent Planet.
And he's the only one that's been to another planet aside from his own.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Oh yes, definitely a lot of philosophy and theology in a pretty sci-fi package.
Yeah.
Yes, that's a good description, Carrie.
Mm-hmm.
It's also kind of just like reason versus non-reason.
Neat. So actually, since Christy brought that up, we can go to that one a little bit. Why do we think Ransom is the chosen one to go to Perelandra and fight the devil? Because I know, Christy, you had some thoughts about like it's not quite clear why he would be the most powerful one to do this. We have a very clear chosen one trope in this book. Do you want to share some thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, mostly what I was wondering was why it took violence. Like, why was violence the answer? And it may be just I didn't read it closely enough, and maybe the answer was in there, but I was just surprised that that was the answer, because he wasn't sure how to defeat the devil. Is it the devil? Was that specifically what it is? I guess so, because it said everything. Yeah, okay. So, yeah, it was just like, he's supposed to just like fight hand-to-hand combat with the devil? Why him, and why that particular method? I really wasn't sure about that. So any thoughts that anybody can offer would be great.
Yeah.
Well, I think it kind of has to do with the reason versus non-reason that I was kind of mentioning, because like he's called the Unman, and like that kind of reminded me of like one of the things that whenever I was reading through Isaiah once, like something kind of dawned on me that like separation from God might not necessarily mean what we think it means, because like we're created in God's image. So if you're separated from God, are you like really even human at that point? So like the whole unman thing kind of goes with the, I kind of lost my train of thought right there, but come back to me.
Okay. No, I think you're onto something though. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. It's interesting because like at first he started because a lot of the unman was trying to have influence on the lady. And the thing about the unman was that he didn't have to sleep as much as Ransom did. So even when Ransom was awake, he was trying to contradict, I guess, what the unman was telling her and re-explaining like, no, it's not like this. You don't have to do this. You don't have to do that. But he couldn't be awake for as many hours as the unman was. So the unman was getting more into the lady's head and trying to get her to encompass whatever his ideals. So I think that's where it had to come down to the physical violence at the end, was the tearing apart of his body in order to stop him from spreading his ideals.
That kind of helped me like find my thought again, because if he's an unman, he's technically a beast. There's no reasoning with the beast. And the only thing that a beast like really understands like is that physicality.
Mm.
The unman did resort to physical tactics, or like really just basic tactics, like trying to keep Ransom awake, like Amanda was talking about, like Ransom, just keeping him awake. So, and you can't reason with that, like Summer was saying. So I guess that's a good point. Like, how else could you fight him?
Yeah.
Yeah. Because there was literally no talking sense to him, or whatever the being was at that point.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Kristen has a good point.
Yes. Yeah. Just being the vessel for what I think is supposed to be Satan. I think that was just he had to kill the vessel because that was the vessel that Satan had chosen, So that was the only way. I think there's definitely maybe some spiritual warfare symbolism as well. Mm-hmm. And I think C.S. Lewis really wants to portray spiritual warfare in a physical way for the reader.
Oh, that makes sense. Okay, that makes sense.
How I read it.
It's a metaphor for spiritual warfare. That makes sense.
That's one theory I have.
I like that theory.
No, I take that too.
Thank you, Victoria. I was like really like, I feel like there's some metaphor here that I'm just not getting.
Yeah. He is a spirit inside a man's body. Yeah, that's true, Christina. Mm-hmm. And
it almost makes me feel
spirit. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Amanda.
it almost makes you feel bad for him at the end of what happens. But I don't. Also, did he bring that upon himself? Like, was he the perfect vessel because of how he already was?
I have a question about that too. Good segue, Amanda. Yeah, I would love to talk about that too. Like, what makes Weston the vessel? Why is he susceptible to being the vessel? I would love to hear some thoughts on that. We kind of see more about that in when we see them on Malacandra, we get a feel for who Weston is. And I thought it was interesting that, like, C.S. Lewis in his opening says you don't need to read The Silent Planet, but I think you absolutely do need to read The Silent Planet first. Otherwise, you don't have the context for who Weston is and, like, his life journey so far and his ideologies. You don't have any concept for also, like, the Eldila, you wouldn't know who they are, or Oyarsa. So I was like, C.S. Lewis. That was not true. We need to read the first book. But yeah, I don't know. What do you guys think? Why is Weston the vessel rather than some other random person? I don't know.
That's a really good question.
Would you call him corrupt? Like, was he already corrupt? And that's kind of what made him a good vessel? It's just because he already had those tendencies and that leaning?
Mm-hmm. Possibly.
I was just reading some of the comments, and it was really, really interesting what Kaylee was saying, because I think Ransom was partly a type of Christ. So I thought that Ransom was just going to have to be killed, and somehow that would teach the lady. I don't know.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, I guess he has to survive to the third book at least.
Unless he didn't, and then we follow the narrator.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
But back to your question.
Kind of weird in that aspect. I'm not sure if Ransom didn't die based off of things that I know in the third book.
Interesting. So he might have actually died. I guess
not kind of.
He did kind of go through that metaphorical journey through the underground, through the darkness, rising back up.
Yeah.
Almost like raised from the dead.
Oh, Kristen, yes, I agree. I think there's some talk about him embracing just like all spirituality and making I think that's my theory as well, that he opens himself up to it because he has found spirituality in general. But I think C.S. Lewis is showing like he hasn't found God, he's found spirituality when we meet him again in Perelandra. So I think that's a great point. What do you guys think about that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he is, I mean, like Christina was pointing out too, like it's also practical. They're the only ones that we've seen actually visit the planet. So there's that as well. Also interesting that he learned the language properly too. He took some time.
I don't know if he did. I think that
might have been the spirit inside of him.
Yes, that would make sense.
I think Weston was kind of melded into the rest of the devil's kind of spiritual world.
Really no longer Weston. He was just kind of
the
embodiment.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That's a good point. Yeah, he also knew how to build the ship and fly it. Yeah, there's only people know how to do that in this world. All right. Thank you for speculating with me on that for a little while. Okay, I definitely want to get to this because we had a lot of people wondering about this and wanting to talk about it. So we're all wondering about the significance of Ransom's bleeding heel and what do we make of this? I know a few people had pointed out in the Discord about Genesis 3:15. And the verse about he will smite your heel.
Oh.
Let me see if I can. Here, I'll find
Something
that.
about bruising the
Yeah,
heel.
I don't have my Bible by me.
I looked it up when you mentioned that, Victoria, because I hadn't heard it before.
Okay, yeah, so it goes, I will put enmity between you and the woman, and between your offspring and hers. He will crush your head, and you will strike his heel. So it's kind of like we're reversing that, though. So the devil struck his heel instead. Which is interesting.
Maybe it's an Achilles heel reference.
Well, maybe, yeah. It could even be. I mean, C.S. Lewis would have been down with all the Greek mythology, too.
Yeah, because he talks about the gods and stuff a lot.
Yeah.
Of course, Ransom. He's talked in other works about how Jesus was myth made real. He was the only true myth in the sense that he factually came down to earth and became a man. So I guess that kind of makes sense. Because he talks about Venus and was it Apollo? Was the other one he talked about?
Apollo.
Aphrodite. Aphrodite is, I think, the goddess that is tied with Venus, because he mentions that.
I was about to say that there's a lot of like the whole going to Mars and then going to Venus, and how like Mars is masculine and Venus is feminine. Like I was looking into that a little bit last night, because that might answer some of my questions of the third book.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because there's still like the ending of the third book is still weird to me, but we'll get there, I guess. And I'm hoping that maybe like the whole like Greek mythology idea behind it will help me understand it.
He really ties everything together. I know that he had a fascination with like the Middle Ages and the way they thought about the planets and how they connected everything. And you could really see that in these books.
Yeah, so I saw it as a reversal. I hadn't even thought about the Greek mythology, so that's really interesting too. But I had seen it first as like a reversal of that verse where the devil would strike, or sorry, you would strike, like the man would strike the devil's heel, I think is what it's like that verse is referring to. Whereas this is like a reversal of that event. And maybe like tainting man a little bit, like Ransom is tainted by him. Oh, go ahead, Summer.
Well, that could be it. Like the whole thing is a reversal. The world didn't fall.
Right.
Well, and I'm wondering too if that's just to show that anybody can in some way be influenced by the devil. Not everyone's safe from him. And maybe that's our physical representation of that, is not that now he's carrying this bleeding heel.
Yeah. I could see that. Definitely. I had kind of been in line with that thinking too, Amanda. It's a physical representation of like, him striking man and like tainting man.
Yeah, because at that point, Ransom could just be the representation of man as a whole and not just his struggle with it.
Oh, okay. Kaylee, thank you for clarifying.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah, so Ransom is definitely the Christ archetype.
Yeah.
In the book.
Yeah, that makes sense.
He receives
his name is Ransom.
A blow to the head.
I mean,
Doesn't he get decapitated?
Well, I mean, Weston's body is dead, but I think we can assume that evil still exists. Like the spirit of evil is probably not dead, and I assume we'll see them again in the third book. I would think. Just a prediction.
Wait, who are you expecting to see again in the third book?
The devil.
Oh.
Yeah. in a different manifestation. But I don't know for sure.
Okay, yeah, there's the verse.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's true too, Christina. He's from a fallen world already.
I guess maybe the point is he can take it, just like Christ came to earth so that he could take it, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I'm sorry, I'm searching.
Oh no, you're good. Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, I think I remember that happening. Yeah, Weston was definitely not looking too hot after that.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's a good point too, Carrie. Yeah, yeah, I think we will see that spirit again.
Yeah.
All right. So let's see here. I'm interested to see like how you guys thought of how this book kind of started and wrapped up. I thought it was really unique that we begin the book with him returning and then we end the book with him like getting packed up into his spaceship, and it's very like cyclical in just the structure that it's the way it's told. But I know a lot of us have expressed being very confused about the ending in general and like figuring out like what happened exactly and kind of all the information we get at the end. But what do you guys think of the ending and how everything wraps up? Do you have any thoughts, Amanda?
Yeah, I kind of wanted a chapter or two to kind of explain what we had just gone through. Which I feel like we had received at the end of Out of the Silent Planet. So it was a very abrupt ending, and I was left there like, okay, now I have to digest all this, and I still am lost. I need like at least 7 more read throughs of this to really understand.
Me too.
Yeah. So it was very interesting the way it was told, but it was very, very abrupt and kind of threw me off. It was like, okay, well, what next? But at the same time, I do feel like where time passed between Out of the Silent Planet and Perelandra, I feel like this lends itself better to kind of just diving straight into that hideous strength. Mm-hmm. I don't know if it does or not.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it looks like David agrees too. Expecting to have at least a chapter continuing from Ransom being back on Earth. Yeah, it feels a little bit cliffhangery as far as like, oh, what happens now?
I mean, maybe that was the point. He was just like, hey, read the 3rd book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that is mainly what's going on with the structure there. I think he's trying to recall us at the end of this, oh, everything works out perfectly. But remember, there's problems back home, because you have to remember he comes back, he does come back in the very beginning, and we see that there's issues going on. They're just like really casually alluded to. Let me see if I can find a quote. But, the guys back home are just like, yeah, and everything completely fell apart while Ransom was gone. And then suddenly he came back and he was like really healthy, except for this weird bite on his heel. So I feel like it's recalling us back to that. And it's like setting up the next book, which
that was a really good point, because like World War II like had pretty much just started.
Yeah.
In this book.
Is that what it was referencing? Do you think it was referencing World War II?
I think
so.
Because
it was talking about Germany bombing London and stuff like that, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm.
I feel like there was even maybe more. I thought there was more like, I don't know. I could have been totally wrong. I was thinking that it was like referencing other like spiritual things as well, but I don't remember. I'm going to see if I can find the quote.
Okay. Kristen says, Lewis seems to be, he likes the, let me tell you about this crazy story that just happened. And then tells the story. Yeah. Prince Caspian does that too. You're right, Kristen. He likes telling stories that way. through the eyes of someone who already heard the story, kind of passing it down.
Okay, so you guys might totally be right about this. So it said, then the months went past and grew to a year and a little more than a year, and we had raids and bad news and hopes deferred, and all the earth became full of darkness and cruel habitations, till the night when Oyarzar came to me again. So I wasn't really thinking in terms of like, what in human history could this be referring to? I was totally thinking that there was some like spiritual sci-fi thing happening here, and I was like, I need to know more. So that's what I was thinking at the end of it. But maybe it literally is just World War II.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, apparently he does mention the date, and it is 1942.
Yes. Yeah, when he makes the inscription of Weston's like tombstone, like he says like, the year 1942. So that is where I think he would be in time. Yeah, and World War II is referenced.
What is cruel habitations? That sounded kind of like
camps.
Oh, gotcha. Yep, that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. Let's see. There's like a few more things that were brought up that I wanted to maybe touch on a little bit. So Carrie had previously been told by other people, they had told her that this book was a bit sexist, perhaps. Do we agree or disagree? What do you think of the way gender plays out in this book? For me, like I saw it pretty much as like just him trying to be a parallel of Adam and Eve. But I'm curious what would be considered sexist. There's like a little paragraph about gender and masculine and feminine that I didn't fully understand if you're like a little bit towards the end of the book.
When he's talking about the Oyarzas of Malacandra and Perelandra, he's talking about them in genders, but not having a definite like sex or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was actually pretty forward looking for him to separate physical sex and gender. But it does depend on if you find it offensive, the idea that there are genders, and there's differences between the genders.
Well, the conversation definitely is kind of countercultural, because a lot of people do view gender as a social construct, and he's like, no, like gender is more definite than sex.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Not that we understand it exactly at all, really.
Yeah.
He made it such a mysterious thing. He's like, I can't really describe it, but they're just different.
Mm-hmm.
Like how mountains are masculine, it was saying.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's hard to explain that. Like, why would you think a mountain is masculine? I don't know. It just kind of feels masculine.
Yeah. Well, maybe there is an arbitrariness to that. I mean, he is also writing in the 40s as a so yeah, it is. I had not necessarily read anything like that he's saying negative about like women being inferior or anything. But I was just reading it as this picture of like literally Adam and Eve.
Yeah.
And
that's how I take it.
How the Bible talks about it. Yeah. Yeah, I agree, Kaylee. Mm-hmm. That's how I read it too. But yeah. Interesting. I'll have to research more about like the criticisms on that, because I'm not really aware of what's been criticized in this book about that. But yeah.
He does say things like, oh, when the male's in the room, like you just can't help thinking about the male, and stuff like that. So if that's something that's offensive, I could understand why people would say that it's sexist. But that is, you know, somewhat the biblical model, that the male is kind of in charge, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm saying it really crudely and not very well, but yeah.
No, I know what you mean. All right. Interesting. Okay, this is another one. This is like a question that breaks my brain too. So if you don't want to answer, it's totally okay. Because I don't know if I have an answer either. Oh no, we left Summer. Okay, we should come back. But there are a lot of big ideas in this book, and a lot of them. It's very dense at times, especially towards the end. It gets more and more heavy on the theology of everything. I'm just curious, kind of, because everybody picks up something different when they read something like this. So, like, what statements did you take away from, or what do you think Lewis is trying to say with this story? Yeah, what did you take away from it as a whole, in like big picture ideas?
This is something I find really interesting. It's like a new dispensation. They keep talking about how God makes everything new. He never does the same thing twice. And so I feel like he's doing something very new here. And like what happened on the Silent Planet, that was a new thing. You know, the fall happened, and then, you know, Jesus like redeemed people. He redeemed creation by his sacrifice. So, and that couldn't have happened without the fall. But that doesn't need to happen again, right? So even if the lady here had fallen, you know, it wasn't going to look like it did on the Silent Planet. So he's just like carrying out a whole new agenda here, and I find that really fascinating, because I just don't see that kind of imaginative. It's such a wider outlook than I feel like I've seen as far as just Christian imaginative thinking. It's so imaginative, thinking about something different than the earthly model or what we've directly been told in the Bible. He's like kind of expanding outward with his imagination about what worlds would look like.
I totally agree. Hey, Summer, you're back.
Hi.
Yay.
That just kicked me out. I don't know.
That does happen.
Oh yes, one of the topics is also free will for sure. And C.S. Lewis definitely plays with the idea of what choices would we make too if it's redone, right? Which is one that I find very interesting. Like what choices would the people make in kind of the similar, like Garden of Eden starts over again? What would happen on a revamp? And would the choices be different? And in this case, they were different, right? They got. Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, were they different because of influence this time, though?
I guess they were different because Ransom was involved, right, from the beginning. And if he's our Christ figure, Christ was involved earlier, you know. Technically.
So this was progress.
Yeah.
Yes.
We're learning.
Devil figure if it weren't for Weston being the vessel to get it there on the planet.
Oh yeah, it looks like I missed a few things about the last question too, but yeah, definitely agree, Kaylee. It's more complex. It's more complex than that. Absolutely.
My cousin actually married a man that grew up Jewish, and like getting conversations from him about like gender dynamics in the Bible has actually been like really informative, because man was supposed to be like the spiritual head of the household, but like women like took care of like the finances and other things like that. And that's something that like you don't really see like in the Bible, because like the Bible's like the spiritual aspect of it.
Right. Definitely. Good. Thank you for the recommendation for that book. I'll definitely have to look into that too. Oh yes, the lady. So Kaylee says she likes how she describes how she chooses from her own heart to follow the will of God. Free will within the boundaries of God's guidance is the ultimate freedom. Yeah. It's a good thought, Kaylee. Yeah, that's true too, Christina.
Yeah.
This is all taking place after Christ as well. Mm-hmm. That's a good point.
Because it does
I had
mention
not thought
that
of
if the world did fall, salvation would come in a different way. It wouldn't be the same way as like through a cross and everything.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Let's see. Did anybody want to? Sorry, I kind of went back and forth a little bit. Did anybody want to add anything about themes or big ideas? I feel like I missed something. But we talked about free will being a big theme. Also, something I've personally found interesting that I kind of think we might see more of as well, going to the third book, is I lost my train of thought. The redemption, like the impending redemption of the Earth, right? So we keep being alluded to. The Earth needs to be saved, right? The Earth needs to be saved. Malindil's going to do something, and I'm wondering if that's what the setup is for the next book. Is that we're going to come back to Earth?
Yeah,
that would be so cool. I would love to see that.
Only Summer knows.
Yep. Got all the answers.
I don't have all the answers, but I do know the answer to that question.
Okay. Well, going into that then, do you guys have any other predictions? That was kind of my prediction. I think we're gonna make a return to Earth and have more of a story involving Earth's redemption. I could be totally wrong. But we've seen Malacandra was an old world and Perelandra is a young world, and the Silent Planet is a fallen world.
Yeah.
Do you think we're gonna find another kind of world? This was Christy's question, by the way. What kind of world is left?
What would be the other world you would think of?
I don't know.
I do not know. That's what I'm wondering.
I was just thinking if you were thinking there was another option between like old, young, and fallen.
I feel like, I don't know, like old and young, and then, the Silent Planet is like kind of in the middle. It's not totally old. It's not totally young. So there's that. And then there's the different dispensations on each world. So I still am not totally sure what the difference is between Malacandra and Perelandra. Like, why are they different? Like, what are the differences that in the plan, for those different planets? Because clearly the Silent Planet had a different plan than like Perelandra. That's really obvious. Because again, God doesn't do the same thing twice. So I'm just wondering if there's like another plan that God's going to carry out, or if he's going to redeem the Silent Planet.
Mm-hmm.
So I really don't know.
Yeah, to me, I feel like the Silent Planet needs to come in again in some way and be redeemed in some way. But yeah, I don't know. Neither does Christina. I have no idea. I agree, Christina.
It seems like we would come back to Earth because of all the alluding they do in both books to what Earth is like and where it is. So it seems like it would be a nice circle back.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
Danny. It's like Goldilocks. Alexandra was too old. Perelandra was too new. Earth is just right. You're funny. Yeah. I know. I feel like at the end of Silent Planet, like we were like, I don't know what's going to happen next. And then at the end of this one, I kind of feel the same way. Like, I don't know. It's so hard. It's so hard to think forward on the series because he surprises me in so many ways. Yeah, it's just it's so imaginative. I have no idea what he's going to imagine next.
Agreed. I'm excited.
Mm-hmm. Me too. All right. I would love to know what we would rate this book. Did we like it more than the first? Do we like it less than the first? I'm kind of still thinking about this personally, but my one criticism that I would have for this second book is I do feel like sometimes the theology and philosophical conversations interrupt the narrative in a way that they didn't interrupt the narrative, like the flow of the narrative, as much as the first book. The first book felt more like a story, and this is starting to feel more like a conversation, rather than a story. Like there's a story there, but it's starting to feel more like a discourse, which is fine too, and I enjoy that as well. But I do think it bogs down sometimes just as a story, if you look at it that way too. But so I'm kind of sitting at 4 stars.
I think we're kind of having the same thoughts on these books, because whenever I read Perelandra, I also gave it 4 stars.
Okay, yeah, I'm thinking 4 stars personally. Would you still think that, Summer, or have you changed your mind? Yeah. What about you, Amanda?
I gave this one a 4-star, which is higher than what I gave Out of the Silent Planet. But I think at this point, I had a better idea of what to expect for these books, I guess. So in that way, my mindset was changed already when I had gone into the book of just knowing, it wasn't going to be like a straight sci-fi story. It was going to have a lot of theology and things like that involved. So I was set up a lot better for this book, I think. And I don't know, the dragons, I really liked.
Gotta love the dragons.
Yeah.
How about you, Christy?
I liked this one better than the first one. I really, really enjoyed it. I was riveted to it the entire time. I was disappointed that I couldn't just sit down and read the whole thing immediately, which actually I read the first probably 4/5 of it in one night. I just sat down and read it. And I really wanted to do the same thing with the ending because there's so much packed in there. So I feel like this has so much rereadability potential. And so I always rate those books really highly because there's so much to explore and think about. But I felt the same way about the first book too, that it was so rereadable as I was rereading it the second time. So, but I didn't necessarily feel that way when I first read the first book. So this one I really, really loved. I don't know if I would give it 5 stars. I'll probably give it a B+. That's my best. I like the letters.
Fair.
Yeah. Kaylee has an interesting question that I would like to point out real quick. Who is Lewis's intended audience for these books? That's a good question.
That's really kind of funny because I found a website last night of a person that their first book of C.S. Lewis's was Perelandra. And it was a person that had been struggling with their faith. And it was the perfect book for them. So I just think that's kind of funny that this question was presented.
Oh, that's so interesting, Summer.
Yeah. So I don't know.
Yeah.
I feel like it could be an apologetics type thing, but honestly, I think it's for everybody to think deeply about humanity and our place in the universe, I think. The first one is speaking more, I think, to general man, whereas this one, I think, gets really deep into theology in a lot of ways. So you might be really lost if you're not familiar with any of the Christian. In fact, I know you would be completely lost probably if you didn't have any knowledge of Christian anything. It would be baffling. So the first one I feel like is more broad, whereas the second one is more specifically Christian.
I would agree with that because I don't come from a background of a based family, and I personally, like, if I would classify myself, I would say I'm agnostic. So for me, the theology really does go way over my head, but at the same time, it makes me really interested, and I do want to read more and dive in more, but it is just very, very dense for someone like me to read.
It's dense for all of us.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, definitely for
everyone.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%.
I don't think it's young adult.
No.
No,
No.
Yeah, Rainy, that's so weird. That's so weird that it's in your
They're
YA
on the
section.
planet naked. They're not
Yeah.
YA.
I would have been, if I was reading this as a young adult, I would have been like, where's the romance?
Where's some action?
Yeah.
When do they get together?
Yeah, exactly.
That's funny. Yeah, that's
Romance is
very
the
strange
romance.
classification.
I think people just tend to think sci-fi can't be as profound, so it has to be for younger readers, of course. Or at least it used to be that case, that way.
So Carrie thinks it's for the not Christian readership to draw them in with this story to draw them in with a sci-fi story and then check a load of seal.
That's basically what happened.
Kind of, yeah.
I think he's just having fun exploring theological themes, and it's stuff that he wants to communicate. Yeah, he really loves to think, and he loves to help other people think, and these are themes that he loves to think about, is I really think what's going on here.
Yeah.
So whoever wants to read him, he's happy.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a thinker for sure. He likes to postulate about
Mhm.
what if this structure, this, Adam and Eve happened again in this different context? What if this planet meant this? And yeah, for sure. He likes to postulate. He was, clearly very intelligent man. Very a genius, perhaps. So yeah. He liked to think about that stuff.
Oh, Christina mentioned the references, and there were some really cool references in there, like when the angel characters, I forget what they're called. But they became, yes, when they became wheels, that was like the coolest. I was like, what? Because they were trying to make themselves visible in a way to Ransom that wouldn't like totally overwhelm him. Like, normally you can just kind of barely see him. And then they kind of just like showed themselves to him, and he was like, no, not that. That doesn't work. And then the next one was the wheels. And that's an image from the Bible. I forget I didn't look up the verse, but that is a reference. And I've always wondered what that meant. I was like, is that like a vision of the future? Like, what are these wheels,
Yeah, I definitely need to look up like wheel references in the Bible again, because that probably does have a big tie.
Yeah. Well, and it explained it, I think, after that, the angels, they have to like run to keep up with the humans who are just kind of sitting on Perelandra, for Ransom.
Yeah.
So they're continually moving, even though it looks like they're standing still, because they're just like, I don't know if it's a different dimension. Like, I don't know. I'm not really a science brain, but there's something scientific-y going on there.
Oh, wheels in Ezekiel or
yes, yeah, that's what I was thinking of. Because they're like visionary, the wheels are like, it's some kind of prophecy vision thing.
That went over my head completely, Christy.
That was like such a cool moment.
Yeah, that moment was just funny to me, because they're like trying all these different shapes on him, and he's like, whoa, what are you doing? Yeah,
I love moments like that. There's so much of that kind of like stuff that just it makes your mind work differently when you read a book like this.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. Yeah, I know. There's so much that went over my head, guys. I wish, I'm gonna have to reread this a million times.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But we will be going on to the next book. So we will wrap up our chat now, and we will be talking about the third book. Yes, the third book is much bigger, so definitely
Like twice as
pace
long.
it out. Yeah, and it's taken me so long. I don't know about you guys, but it's taken me so long to read these really short ones, and I'm like, oh no, how long is this next one going to take?
Right.
But yeah, so we will talk at the end of May, Saturday, May 29th, at the same time, 11 AM PST and 2 PM EST. And yeah, I'm really excited to see how this wraps up. And I'm a little nervous too. I won't understand everything, but that's why we can get together and talk about it later.
Yes, this was so fun and enlightening.
Yeah, I learned a lot. I learned a lot from everybody.
Same.
So thank you all for coming today, and thank you to my lovely co-hosts for doing this with me and letting me throw a bunch of crazy questions at you.
Anytime.
Thank you, Victoria. This was
thank
great.
you for having us.
Thank you guys, and I will chat with you guys later and in the Discord. Make sure if you're not in the Discord and you want to talk with us throughout the month, I think I put the correct link down below. I realized I'm so sorry. I think I had a dead link in the last one. So David pointed it out to me. So I think I have a correct link now. So definitely join that if you want to talk to us throughout the month of May while you're reading through. All right. Thank you, everybody. Thanks, Danny. Thanks, Rainey. Thanks, Carrie.
Thank you for coming.
Thanks, Kristen.
Your comments are awesome in the chat.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you for helping us out.
Definitely. All right. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.